Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe, and you're checking out Weekend at Gabe's, and thanks for checking out this latest episode. While you're here, also follow us on these social medias at Weekend Gabe, at Weekend at Gabe's, and also at The Real Sam Crane. Thanks for checking us out.
Our next guest is a new face and voice to Weekend at Gabe's, but he's not a new face or voice to me, as he's been on the Morning Rush, and we also attended school together at the Columbia College City, Chicago City.
I got it twice. I got it twice that time, Gabe, because not only did you attend, but he also attended.
There you go. Look, degree gang over here. It is a pleasure to introduce Ray Flores to the show. How are you, sir?
What's up, guys? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, man.
Listen, I'm a little disappointed. You're a huge Bears fan. I had to tough it out for both of us on Sunday and head over to Soldier Field in the elements to watch that miserable game. And you couldn't even show up to be there because you were doing some extravagant event in Vegas or somewhere that I wasn't.
I was down in South Florida, but my flight was delayed 5 hours, so I landed around. I was supposed to land at like 9:30, landed at like past 2:00, but I still made it to my favorite establishment in Chicago for the end of the late games or the early games, and I watched the late games. So all in all, it wasn't that much of a loss.
Hey, shout out the establishment though. Where is it at? Or is
my go-to is Duffy's in Chicago and stuff like that. When I want to go, if I'm not in a club mood, that's where I go to. If I'm in a club mood, Joy District is my spot because that's where everybody goes to, and that's where my guy looks after that place, Mike Jabber. Shout out to him for just crushing it. One of my good friends that I've known for over 10 years through the MMA business and stuff. So crazy how life works, guys.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we went over to the South Loop to watch the afternoon games after walking back from Soldier Field, which was not fun at all.
Well, I give you credit, man. I mean, look, you are one of the OGs and stuff like that. I mean, for going out there and supporting the squad and stuff like that, I know they appreciate it, but I'm not happy with the front office right now. And, the best thing to come out of the front office is Matt Nagy, paying tribute to one of my dear friends, the late, great Jeff Dickerson, who passed away last week unexpectedly at 44.
That's right.
And thankfully to the Chicago community for coming out, raising over $1 million for his son Parker, who's 11 years of age, who now doesn't have his mother or his father. But, we really came together. I mean, we're from Columbia College ourselves, Gabe, and we were all in the media, and we all came together. And thankfully, we raised a good amount of money for a wonderful cause in Parker Dickerson.
I'm sorry if that catches you off guard, but Weekend Gabe has made it a rule on this show. If anybody says Columbia College, I have to hit the air.
I love it. When I think of Chicago, I mean, that's what I think of. I mean, that kind of energy, that kind of passion, that kind of style that we have. I mean, you don't get that anywhere else in the country.
Word.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad that you joined us. It's been such a long time. The last time I talked to you was you had just you did the Mayweather Pacquiao fight. I think it was like 6 years ago.
Was it Mayweather Pacquiao or was it Mayweather McGregor?
No, it is Pacquiao. This is like 5-6 years ago.
Oh wow, okay.
And
wow.
I was doing the early morning show over at Loyola, and you jumped on the call because you had the late night.
You're right. You're right. I didn't sleep that day. Like I literally stayed up till like 7:30 in the morning after doing interviews up until like 2:00 in the morning. And then I started at 6:30. So what did I do in that 4-hour period? I went and played blackjack, enjoyed myself a little bit, and I just powered right through.
You sounded great. I'm pretty sure I could pull that interview, and you sound just like you are right now. But there's so much that has happened in the game. But I want to first talk a little bit about sort of your backdrop a little bit. East Chicago Central High School. I didn't realize you grew up in Indiana because I don't think we had a chance to go into sort of our backgrounds when we were in school together a lot. But it's so impressive of how you took the initiative after a really long heart-to-heart with your father about trying to find a focus that's productive for yourself because you were swimming in high school and not really doing great in school, and it was kind of like a moment to kind of shake you up a little bit. And what came out of that? Because I don't think that really came out in the Ring interview that came out earlier this year. But what were you already fascinated with the idea of being in media and being an announcer?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be a sportscaster. I learned when I was 8, 9 years old, I'm not going to be a pro athlete, but how do I get around it, right? How can I make this my life? My dad's all like, well, be a sportscaster. So I started, even when I was a young kid, right, 4 or 5 years old, watching. I mean, I don't know how, you guys all are, but like, I mean, I'm 35. So I grew up in the days of watching Marv Albert, of watching Jim Lampley call HBO boxing, Steve Albert on Showtime boxing,
The late
watching
great John Madden, of course.
Pat
We were
Foley,
just talking
John
about
Madden,
that.
Pat
Yeah.
Summerall. I mean, Bob Costas, all these
Bob
greats
Costas.
that were in the primes of their careers. So I'm watching these guys and taking bits and pieces that I like out of them. Got into school and stuff like that. You want to play sports, you want to be active, I want to stay in shape. So I started swimming. I did well in school, but I wasn't doing great. And in swimming, I mean, I was okay. But my dad's like, look, you're not going to be an Olympic swimmer. Sorry to tell you, you're not going to be an Olympic swimmer. You know what I mean? Like, you can't even get out of the region. So let's focus on something that is going to benefit you long term. And then I started working for the local TV station. Honestly, like 6 months later, because of that, I met a local fighter named Miguel Torres, who's an MMA fighter who would go on to got into the UFC and was one of the top 10 guys in the division, former WC bantamweight champion of the world. And I started following around him locally and doing his fights locally on public access TV when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. From there, went to Columbia, had an MMA and boxing radio show. Because of that,
Columbia again.
Promoters,
my
did ring announcing and stuff. And I just built from there and did all the fights locally with different clients and different promoters. And because of that, I was able to bounce around. And, I started getting, noticed nationally by one promoter, and then it leads to another promoter, this, producer, et cetera, and just kind of built from there.
I want to talk a little bit about you said that sort of started your traveling around, and I think we've already got stories from Vegas, stories from Chicago, and stories from South Florida in this brief time that we spent together. But I saw in the article that it says you travel sometimes 40 weeks out of the year.
Yeah.
Is it a scenario at this point where you've got a favorite spot in like every city everywhere, and you're like, I know the places? Like, how do you deal with that? That's obviously a ridiculous amount of time to be away from home.
Yeah, I mean, look, thankfully I've been able to venture out enough, because I've been doing this traveling probably since about, 20. My first national TV boxing show was December of 2011. So, and it's been like, for about 3 years, it was maybe once a month or twice a month. From middle of 15 on, it was, or even honestly, from like March of 15, it's been 2-3 weeks at least, sometimes multiple cities in a week's time. So, and from 15 on, it's been 3 weeks on. I mean, I just did, my last weekend off was November 20th. That was my last weekend off. So I worked through Thanksgiving, I worked Christmas, I worked New Year's, and now I have a few weeks off at home, but then I crank it up again. I'm on the road for 3 weeks, then I'm off for a week, and then I crank it up for another 3 weeks. So that's kind of, what it is and stuff. But I do have my favorite spots. Like, I'll go to Vegas, and one of my buddies runs a restaurant. He's great to me, big fight fan. I go there. There's a cigar lounge that I like going to in South Florida, in the Miami Brickell neighborhood. I go there. I mean, certain places that I know I can go to. I know I'm going to have a good time, and I'm going to have, good memories and stuff. So yeah, there are spots that I like to go to in every major city that I'm fortunate to be around.
Word.
You mentioned like, starting at ECTV. So you've been doing this for almost 20 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, you say doing it, like I was really bad in the first like 3-4 years of my life. I mean, like I was terrible. Like I would have yanked me off the air right now. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell are you doing? But thankfully, I was learning at the local level, and the local, like East Chicago, helped to make who I am, and so did Columbia, because they both communities were like, make your mistakes now.
Right.
Go ahead and just learn and grow, and it's okay if you mess up. Just keep getting better. And that was my focus. Let me get better. You know what I mean? Let me not suck less. You know what I mean? And let me just keep improving. And as I progressed in my career, your style changes a little bit. It becomes more refined. And now with the producers I've been able to work with over the past several years, with the directors, with our researchers, with just the people that I'm blessed to be around, brilliant minds in MMA and boxing. And from a television standpoint, like I work with Nigel Lithgow, who's one of the most brilliant minds we've ever seen in Hollywood, co-creator of American Idol, So You Think You Can Dance, working with the likes of Snoop Dogg and Mario Lopez and 50 Cent and, you know, all these guys. I mean, it's just really Nick Cannon, another one, learning their strengths and working with them and watching how they prepare and just really, you know, immersing myself in all their ability. It's hard not to just get infinitely better based on the people that I'm fortunate to work with.
When you say get better, reflecting on that sort of, you know, first period of your life on ECTV, what was your biggest improvement? Like, if you went back and watched your first broadcast ever, what would you be like, oh, that kid needs to work on?
I just wasn't sure of myself. Like, the thing is when you come into when I look at broadcasting, I know you guys just had an artist on right now. In any type of media, you have to know who you are. What's your identity as an artist? What is your identity as a professional on the air? Because our job in television and I, you know, like whether it be TV, online, whatever, everything's visual now. You got to be able to not only inform the audience, but you got to entertain them, and you got to be genuine and authentic. So those are the three things: is you got to inform, you got to entertain, but you also can't be fake. You got to be who you are, because people don't like fake. The days of the old school anchor that Gabe, when you and I are in school, they were like, this is how you should be. And be like, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Channel 5 News here on this Monday evening. It is 5:32. Look, those guys are amazingly talented, but people want real now, because that's what we're getting now. That's why reality TV is so popular. That's why you're seeing people that are unconventional hosts hosting things, because people want real and they want to be entertained. And that's what I've learned. I've learned how to be comfortable in my own skin, and I'm not trying to play a character. When you see me on the air, when you see me off the air, people freak out. They're like, oh my God, that's your real voice. I'm like, yeah, what did you think? They go, oh, we thought that was a put-on voice. I'm like, yo, if I go and get a Starbucks, or if I'm at, you know, Duffy's ordering a Tito's and water with lemon and lime, that's my drink. It's like, that's my voice. That's who I am. You know what I mean? There's no difference. I might be dialed up a little bit on the air, but there's not much difference.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about the voice a little bit, because I was thinking about that, and I'm glad you brought it up. But there can't be any way that you, like, you know, you just arrived in this world with a voice that prolific. You know, like you were designed to do it. And in the article that I read, they were talking about sort of your ambition with your younger brother to become sort of the heir to the Buffer brothers thing. But is that a voice that you cultivated, or did you just always sound? You sound incredible.
Yeah, well, I
like
appreciate
a
it.
librarian.
It's honestly, like, you know, when you hit that certain stage in your life as a young man, and then your voice changes, and it's kind of, that's how it's been, and it's kind of changed over time, because, you know, I like I'll be honest, the past couple of years, once a month or twice a month, I smoke a nice cigar and this and that. You know what I mean? I do enjoy that, you know?
Yeah.
And it changes your voice a little bit, but not anything for the worst. But this is pretty much my voice. Like, people are freaked out because they're like, man, that's your voice. I'm like, yeah, like, this is how I talk. I mean, there's not much difference, because if you try to change yourself, for me, it's like, okay, when do I turn myself off? When do I turn myself off? Now, I'm a lot more chill off the air than what I am on air, but my voice doesn't change, and who I am personally, that's pretty much me 24/7, 365.
Word.
I want to, with the time we have left, I want to respect your time, Ray. Is that right now, sort of in the industry itself, there's a bit of a ripple in the matrix. Logan Paul has seemed to have grabbed the attention of so many people with Triller, and I know you're part of that situation, that setup. But is him not being an official boxer, right, and drawing all this major interest to the sport, is that negatively or positively reflecting the sport itself? And how, and through your lens of someone who's been watching the sport for almost your entire life, like how do you settle with that?
I understand why the traditionalists aren't a fan of it, but I look at it as our world is changing. And what the Paul brothers are doing, Jake and Logan, you know, I did Jake's fight when he beat Ben Askren back in April. And what I notice is that, like, boxing used to be like, oh, we need to see the best fighting, the best, and that's it. Can't have anything else. But then last year, Triller did Tyson and Roy Jones, and people freaked. It was like they did crazy numbers, like over 1 million. And I watched it. I bought it. I'm like, man, this is cool. Like Tyson and Roy Jones, like this is great. Let's go. And then with the Paul brothers, you got to look at combat sports in this. I mean, you can get away with it in boxing. You cannot get away with it in MMA. But it's like I think there's room for the legends, right? For the Tysons and Holyfields to keep fighting as long as the athletic commissions clear them and they're medically cleared by a doctor and they go through a variety of tests and they themselves are willing to do it. Then you got the Paul brothers, who are these social media guys. And, I think Jake Paul is a better boxer than what people think. And they're doing their thing. And they're drawing 15, 16,000 people based on the fact that they're attracting a younger audience. But they also have a good boxing card underneath them. So I think there's room for that. And then there's room for watching the epic fight, one of the most epic fights I've ever seen in my life that I was fortunate enough to call with my colleague, Christina Poncher, Wilder Fury #3, back in October, 4 knockdowns. It was unbelievable. One of the best heavyweight fights we've seen in over 30 years. There's room for all three because the audiences are different and then sometimes they overlap, but it's okay. It's like, look, I love pro wrestling. And even like now, like if they were to say like, hey, Hulk Hogan's coming back for one match only, I'm going to watch if I can, or I'm going to watch it later. Because I'm like, man, when I was a kid, Hulk Hogan did this and do that. Or like when someone like Bad Bunny will jump into pro wrestling.
Right.
Pro wrestling fans are like, oh, this sucks. They're like, yo, this is cool. He's doing like a moonsault. You know what I mean? This is dope.
Right.
But then you also have like your top guys, your Brock Lesnar and your Roman Reigns doing their thing and tearing the house down, the Big E's of the world. There's room for all three because at the end of the day, fighting is entertainment. And when people want to be entertained, but they want to watch each other, guys punch each other, that's okay. But we got room for everybody at the table, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I love that answer because nobody, in traditional boxing would give us an answer like that. They would be like, get that shit out of here. But that was such a fantastic summation throughout it. What you said at the beginning was that you can get away with it in boxing, but you definitely can't get away with it in the MMA. So I'm curious, with my last question of the night, how you feel about boxers moving into the MMA and then the other way around, like we mentioned McGregor Mayweather earlier in the interview.
The thing is with MMA is that there's so much of a pounding on your body because of all the disciplines involved. So it's easier for an MMA fighter who has a background in striking to come over to the boxing realm and test themselves. And they don't have to worry about the takedowns and the jiu-jitsu and the ground fighting and the elbows and the knees and Muay Thai. I mean, MMA, they're both very dangerous. But it's easier for an MMA fighter to adapt to jumping into boxing compared to boxing diving into MMA because the footwork is different. I call wrestling for the Big Ten Network. And the best base for MMA is being a wrestler. Whereas, and MMA fighters, they have to have some type of ground background to be successful. Whereas boxers are used to being on their feet and keeping that distance. And the footwork is so different. When you dive into MMA, you can't have that same stance. And when you've been doing it for 15, 20 years since you were 4 years old, it's going to be really hard to change. But there is more money per fight in boxing than what there is in MMA, which is why you're seeing guys cross over and dive into that world. That's why we saw Frank Mir against Kubrat Pulev in the triad that I did for Triller Fight Club A. The triad's coming back in a couple months as well. So it's just like, I think it's just easier adaptability for MMA fighters to dive into boxing. And boxers are like, yeah, we'll stand up and strike with an MMA guy. Plus, the MMA guys want to do it. So welcome in and let's see it happen.
Right.
Before we get out of here, we usually try to ask like a really fun question. And I just thought about this and I remembered this. You had opened for Cat Williams, like you introduced him in one of his specials. You had like a white long coat. I believe it was like a white top hat. Am I wrong? Talk a little bit about like what that experience was and like did they tell you like how this was going to roll out? Were you totally in a game for whatever they needed you to do?
So one thing about it, you could get the horn ready to go. What I learned at Columbia College, you got to get to know everybody in the industry and always be around because you never know where your connections can lead to. So I became really good friends with my buddy. His name is Sed. And he started watching my career maybe 9-10 years ago, came up to me at an event. It's like, man, I really like your style, whatever. He happened to be friends with Floyd Mayweather. He's known Floyd since forever, like from the local scene. He used to be around local fights. He's tight with Floyd and Floyd's family. So I did Mayweather Canelo. That was my first big Vegas fight, undercards, in September 13. I did Mayweather Maidana, and he goes, the next time you go to Vegas, when you do Mayweather Maidana and you do undercards, don't fly home until Monday because they have a big party, a celebratory party for Floyd at his mom's house in Vegas on that Sunday. You'll come with. And I didn't know that my boy knew him and this and that, and his whole family. But that's how great my boy Seth has been to me. I mean, he's been so nice, and I've had a lot of situations like that. So I go to this party, and I'm there at like 1 o'clock. Floyd rolls in around 8 or 9 o'clock. He has all these obligations and stuff like that. Cat Williams happens to be at this party. Another friend of mine who's now is touring DJ, DJ Obsky, him and I are tight. And he's like, hey, you got to meet Cat Williams. He's like, he's here, this and that. So I meet Cat Williams, and he's all like, hey, he goes, I like your voice, this and that. And then he goes, man, you know what? He goes, I could use somebody like you. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I could use an announcer like you. And he goes, you know what? He goes, why don't you send me my tape, this and that, send your demo tape to my manager. I'll look it over. My boy, and literally this is 9:30. I've been there for 8 hours, having a few cocktails. And he goes, and he goes to Cat. He goes, no, forget all this nonsense about him sending the tape. Ray can audition for you right now. And I look at him, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can. He goes, Ray, introduce him, whatever. And then I was like, well, Cat, give me a nickname. So he gave me a nickname or something. I forget what the nickname was. So I introduced him, and he looked at me. He's all like, hey, I like you. He goes, you're hired. He goes, my assistant will be here in 15 minutes. You exchange info. I'll see you in Southern Cal next week. I'm like, what? Like, are you kidding me? So his manager comes in 15 minutes later, and she's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to give you a top hat with this velvet coat. It's going to be like a ring master gear, whatever. You do the intro. Oh, and by the way, the producer, Spike Lee. I'm like, what? Like crazy, man. So this is on a Sunday. The following Thursday or the following Friday, we flew to Southern California. I think it was Ontario. And it was like 10,000 people, right? Over 10,000. It was a Friday. We did rehearsals on a Friday and even on a Saturday too. I remember we were doing rehearsal, and Spike Lee is a master of what he does. But I remember he had this attention to detail, and I had to memorize the script. I'm not used to memorizing scripts like that, guys. Not in 2014. I had to memorize this script. And I'm like, my buddy and I, for some reason, we ended up going to the grocery store for some reason, or a Target. And I'm like running through the lines, get to rehearsal. I'm knocking it out. Cat comes over to me. He goes, hey, he goes, save me some. I'm like, save me some. I'm like, what does that even mean? What that meant from his standpoint is, you're killing it on rehearsal. I need you at your best during the show. Yeah. Fast forward to maybe a few hours later, right? And I'm there, and they have a big tiger come out, right? And they have these beautiful women that are like, models. I'm like, oh my gosh, like these beautiful models. I mean, and I look at the crowd, and they're like 12,000 people in this place. I'm like, oh man. So we start, or an hour before, I'm like, hey, Spike, thanks a lot for, the opportunity, this and that. I'm really excited to be a part of this. He goes, oh, I'm not worried about you. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I know you're going to kill this. I'm not worried about you. And then he starts going to everybody else. I'm like, bro, I was already had pressure on my shoulders. Now Spike Lee says he believes in me, like a legend in cinema, and what he has done in our business in Hollywood, like a Hollywood giant. And he's saying he believes in me. I'm like, yo, and can I curse on this show or no?
Yeah, you sure as hell can.
So one of the things that I was telling myself is, you cannot fuck this up. Don't fuck this up. You have to be at your best. Don't screw up. You better, I'm yelling at myself, don't you dare not kill this. You have to. They introduced me then. I think it was Red Grant who introduced me, and I start walking across the stage. I got these massive boots on, this whole get up. I start midway through. I forget my lines. My mind goes blank. Boom! I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What they taught us at Columbia College in Chicago. Beautiful. Is always use words to jog your memory, because if you get caught and you have a loss of train of thought, it's okay. Buy yourself sometimes with clutch words. So I said along with, I don't even know if it fit, but it did. And then after that, after I said along with, it jogged my memory. And then I went through it and bang, I hit the point. Boom. Like, it was unreal, man. Like, that whole experience was crazy. But the whole thing is always be ready and always be overly prepared. And you got to be able to handle pressure, because when someone like Spike Lee and Cat Williams believe in your ability, you have to be able to produce for them, because those guys have done so much, and I have so much respect for them that there is no going back when they give you that opportunity. On, mind you, Cat Williams is back. It was his comeback on HBO that we needed to smash. So that was I was so honored to be a part of that.
That's incredible. If Spike Lee tells me that he believes in me, I forget that instant. And there's not a clutch word on planet Earth that is going to get me back. That's incredible. That's one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard.
Yo, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy story, man. I mean, it was just, I've been very blessed. Put it this way, guys. Like, I've been very blessed to work with some amazingly talented people, and I learn from them every single day. So I'm very fortunate.
Listen, we've had Cheryl Ray Stout on this show so many times, and every time we close out, we're like, when is the memoir coming out? Ray, when is the memoir coming out?
Man, I got a long way away, bro. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just getting started. The one thing about my mentality, and I don't know if you guys believe in this, but I look at our careers like a football team, and I'm a big NFL fan. So it's like, I enjoy it. You go out there and you win and you do well on the night of the show. Cool. I'll enjoy it that night, maybe a little bit even to the next day when I'm getting home. After I'm home for about a day, then it's like, okay, what's next? Forget about what you did. It's not about what you did in the past. It's about what you're doing coming up and what you're doing in the future. So the present, the future, that's my focus. I got a long way away. I want to be in this business for the next 40 years. And honestly, by the time I'm 55, 60, I don't really want to be on there. You know why? Because I want to be from a behind the scenes standpoint and to influence the younger generation, because I think the younger generation needs to get their opportunity, but they also need guidance. Yes. I've had a lot of great guidance from amazing people that have mentored me, and I would like to give that back to our industry once I feel that it's time for me to kind of have my maiden voyage off the air. So I'm 35 now. Another 30 years, I think, would be suffice. And then maybe the world is, I'm fortunate. I have the capability to give you the memoirs and stuff.
Word.
All right. Well, we'll check in with you in 30 years. And ask you again. Ray, thank you so much for giving us your time. I know you're a super busy man, but I always appreciate whenever we can check in.
Always a pleasure, guys. Happy New Year. Look forward to talking with you soon.
All right.
Stay safe out there.
All right. Ray Flores joining us here on Weekend at Gabe's. Like I said, that was an amazing story.
That was one of the better interviews I think we've had, just pure story wise. I know I say that like after every episode now, which is like getting to the level of you with the word phenomenal. Not everything is phenomenal, Weekend Gabe.
This was phenomenal.
That being said, that was a phenomenal story. There was everything. There was drama. There was intrigue. There were several high quality people in that story. Certainly that is one of the better stories. I think the only person who could get a story even close would be Cheryl.
Right, exactly. The funny thing is that I didn't even have that question written down. It was like it just triggered my memory, and I thought he would just be really brief of like, oh yeah, it was this really fun thing that I did. But it was literally like a 15-minute story, and I was on the edge of my seat the entire time.
Yeah. Incredible. That's why we do this show. That's why this show is back. 2022. There's so many twos in this year, and there's two of us on this show, but there is three things that we do on this show, Weekend Game.
Oh, we got to tease Thursday. Hang on.
Oh, okay. Well, what's up with Thursday?
Thursday is going to be another big show. We're bringing back Thursday Thunnies. Clark Jones is going to be joining us, a comedian who's done work in Chicago. He's based out of Atlanta. He's going to be joining us. Does a lot of work with the Laugh Factory. And then Malik Youssef the name that you should be familiar with. Grammy Award winning. Has worked with Common, Kanye West. He is one of the most prolific spoken word artists that have ever come out of the city of Chicago. He's going to be joining us also Thursday. I'm super excited that this whole week panned out the way that it did and that the way it's going to be. This is a really exciting week for me.
Incredible show and incredible guests. And guess who didn't book a single guest this week, America? You're looking at the laziest man in television.
Oh.
That's me. You're looking at the hardest working man in television right here and with the best hair. And that's why we do this show, America. It's 2022. There's 2 of us, but there's 3 things that you got to do. And what are they, Weekend Gabe?
Share, support, and show love by joining us January 13th. 2022 at Bourbon on Division for Weekend at Gabe's 100. Get your tickets now. Head over to any of our social platforms at Weekend Gabe, at Weekend at Gabe's, at The Real Sam Crane. Find the QR code, the link to Bourbon, do 312. Keep a lookout for the Chicago Reader, Vocalo, The Tribe. We're going to be having press soon. It's going to be major. You don't want to miss it. Weekend at Gabe's 100 is going down in a major way.
And with that, America, we're out for the first time this year. We're doing the Vogue. We're bringing the Vogue back. Ladies and gentlemen, keep your hands up. That's what they say in the boxing ring. Yeah, America. Ooh. What's going on? Get that.
Take that. We're out.
Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe. Thanks for checking out this latest episode of Weekend at Gabe's. Click on any of the links swirling around my head and also hit the subscribe button while you're here. Thanks for checking out us here on YouTube.